Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the ImeckSports.com pregame show right here for the My Connection Game of the Week. I'm Joe Cullen with Harry Nostrand from CarolinaVarsity.com. We're excited to come to you tonight and bring you all the wrap-up from last week's I-Meck conference action. Harry, another great week of football.
Another great week for the I-Meck. You know, things get better and better, and as this conference play goes on, things are just getting more and more interesting.
It really is. I mean, it was a big week and really created a log jam at number 4 in the conference with 4 teams at 2 and 3 in the conference. It's kind of going to be a really big week this week to determine kind of that 4th and 5th playoff spot for the I-Meck.
I totally agree, and I can't wait for, last week of the season, once everything's all squared out, see who's in the playoffs, see who's not.
Well, we're going to talk about it next week. Dale Ross, founder of CarolinaVarsity.com, will be here with us. Dale does a good job of really putting together projections of who should see where, and if they finish with where they're projected, who they'll play in the first round of the playoffs. So he's going to come in, share with us what the projections look like and how the I-Meck teams may fare and where they're going to play in the playoffs. So that's going to be a lot of fun next week. Dale Ross from CarolinaVarsity.com. Harry, Dale just been doing this for like 10 years. I mean, he's got it down when it comes to it.
I'd say as we talked about, he knows his football. He knows his high school football. He's got the ideas of where things are going to fall, how things are going to work out. So it'll be good to have him up here because obviously, we're no geniuses when it comes to this stuff. We know a little bit, but Dale's going to be here to shed a little bit of light on what's going to happen.
Well, for me, it gets outside the I-Meck this year. I really don't know too much going on. With doing the broadcast game and we were covering multiple regions throughout the Piedmont, kept a lot more eyes on what was happening statewide. This year I had to do a pick for Carolina Weekly a couple of weeks ago as their guest pick and had to really do a little homework to be able to pick the outside the I-Meck conference game. So a lot of fun, though. Have a good time. Looking forward to that. Let's get into I-Meck play. Last week, our My Connection Game of the Week, Mooresville at Huff. Mooresville went in with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. As we talked last week, a lot of trash talking going on online between the fans, especially on CarolinaVarsity.com. They went in and made a statement.
Yeah, the only word that comes to mind when you talk about it is just domination. I mean, Mooresville went in there. The very first drive, they put together a nice drive, going through the air to the ground. It looked very good. And then after that, kind of turned into a little punting contest between the teams. But just before the second half started, Mooresville went on their roll. And Deontay Black finished with 168 yards rushing, added another 64 yards in the air passing, 3 total touchdowns. D. Tomlin 144 yards rushing with a touchdown. Overall, good offensive performance. My favorite stat though, negative 11 yards for Huff's offense. Mooresville defense dominated.
They really did. Huff, had trouble moving the football. A few penalties really pushed that negative 11 back, but really tough night. Final score, Mooresville 31, Huff 0. And as you can tell, we're here at bench warmers again this week. Weather again outside. We tried to shoot last night at Mooresville High School, got caught by the weather in the darkness. So tonight it's Wednesday as we're shooting this segment. We're inside, basketball game going on over the court. You got 2 travel baseball teams in the cages, travel softball team back in the soft toss area, another travel team back in the field area. So very busy place here tonight at Benchwarmers. But we appreciate Rick and the gang letting us come into the dry and really get some work done and be able to shoot the pregame show tonight.
Sure, it works out well for us. I'm hoping one of these kids might let me come back here and take some hits in the cage for them.
You're going to have a hard time, and those kids will probably make you look bad.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know if I want to get back there too hard, though.
But, well, let's move on. Vance at North Meck last week. Vance took care of business 55-21 over the Vikings.
You know what? I don't want to say this game came out of nowhere, but, essentially it came out of nowhere from a Vance team that's down this year, down in numbers, down in overall talent. But they put a world of hurt to North Meck, and unfortunately for North Meck, obviously, 1-8 on the season. It's been a long season for them, but a good performance by Vance, and impressive. They got a couple wins string together now, and as we talked about, they're starting to make their little run for a playoff push.
Well, they are, and both those, our Vance is actually one of the 4 teams at 2 and 3 in the conference, 3 and 6 overall. For them, they're kind of getting hot at the right time. The problem is they still have to play the Creek.
You know what? For anybody that's got it, I mean, I hate saying it. It's one of those situations where you kind of hope you go into that game and just come out healthy. But, you know, if they can win their next few games, and obviously, you know, Mallard Creek, they're going to have to play near perfect. Mallard Creek's going to have to play the band or anybody but their starters. But, you know, if they can win what the games they should make a good run to the playoffs.
They really should. Vance will have a good shot. I think they're kind of the outside now favorite for that number 5 seed. West Charlotte kind of looked like a lock early. West Charlotte fizzling a little bit here late. Actually lost to Lake Norman 31-20 Friday night.
Yeah, you know what? That's one of those ones, too. Just a good night for Lake Norman. You know, bouncing back after only have 25 yards of offense against Vance. They come back. Abercrombie has 140 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, and the running back had 120 yards rushing. You know, it's a great offensive performance for them, and they put the clamps down on a very speedy West Charlotte team. You know, T.J. Mixon's no slouch. So, impressive win for Lake Norman.
Yeah, it really was. And really, the way kind of things are shaping up, that final week of the season, West Charlotte Vance could be for that number 5 spot. Both Lake Norman and West Charlotte now 2-3 in the conference. 3-6 overall for Lake Norman, 3-5 for West Charlotte. So really, you know, if Lake Norman can put together a win this week against Huff, you never know. They're still in it for that number 5 spot. You know, in our final game this past week, Mallard Creek, Hopewell. You know, Mallard Creek, we were talking about before we came on the air, is averaging beating conference opponents by just over 50 points a game. Mallard Creek, Hopewell, 65-6. Hopewell, though, for them, you've got to take some solace in putting 6 points on the board. You know, and really, that program kind of rebuilding, first-year coach with Dave Johnson, have really made some good strides in the last few weeks. Played Mooresville tight, you know, have really kind of moving along, so you're excited to see what's going on with Hopewell.
Yeah, you know, obviously, running into Mallard Creek's like running into a buzzsaw for just any team in the conference. But Denzel Heath had a good run there for Hopewell in the first quarter, got their touchdown, and you know, other than that, it was, you know, fairly inefficient for Hopewell. But like you said, they did put 6 points up, which is better than most of the teams in I-Meck are doing. And I do expect some good things to come out of Hopewell here very soon.
Really do. They, you know, right now, if they can kind of keep some momentum, they may be that number 4 team, you know, coming out of the conference, the way it's looking. But right now, you've got tied for that 4 slot, Vance, West Charlotte, Lake Norman, and Hopewell, as we said. So, you know, Mallard Creek, of course, number 1. Mooresville, the number 2, at 7-2 on the season, 4-1 in conference. Huff comes in next with a 4-5 record, but they're 3-2 in the conference. So they kind of solidified their place. You know, they're at the front of the pack. They have Lake Norman this week, but then they get Mallard Creek the last week of the season. So, you know, a lot of things going on for them. Really tough week when you look at it and start thinking, okay, where's everything going to fall out? So should be a lot of fun. As I said, we're at Bench Warmers. We'll be right back to set up this week's action here on the ImeckSports.com pregame show for the My Connection Game of the Week. Welcome back to Bench Warmers and the ImeckSports.com pregame show. Harry, a lot of fun this week as we talked right before break. 4 teams log jam for 4th place in the conference. A couple of them playing each other this week. Starting out with Hopewell at Vance. Hopewell 3-5 on the season, 2-3 in conference. Vance 3-6 on the season, 2-3 in the conference.
It's going to be a big game, you know. These next few games and these next few weeks for most of these teams are all going to do or die for the playoffs. You know, I'm a big fan of the whole momentum thing, and I think Vance got a little bit of momentum heading into this game, although I do think Hopewell has overall better players. I'm not saying necessarily better, but I think they get a little bit more offensive flow. You know, Lorenz Bryant's a great weapon for Vance, but I think Denzel Heath, and you know, they got a good quarterback there at Hopewell. And
obviously, time's up.
And obviously their game plan was good.
Buzzer on the basketball court. There's a 14U basketball game going on right now while we're filming this at Bench Warmers, so I had to get you with that one. Really, you're right. And this game for Vance is huge because of the fact that they get to go to West Charlotte next week. West Charlotte, another team, 3-2 in the conference. So West Charlotte is going to face Mallard Creek. So you hate to put a loss on the board for them, but realistically, with Mallard Creek going to West Charlotte this week, West Charlotte loses a ball game this week. So they drop to 2-4. If Vance gets beat by Hopewell, they drop to 2-4. And now both of them are fighting for that number 5 position last game of the season.
Yep, and that game becomes huge then.
And then you look at Lake Norman, they've got to go to Huff. We talked about it, off air. That is the next biggest thing to Lake Norman Mooresville. I mean, Huff is quietly and quickly became a major rival for both Lake Norman and Mooresville. Kind of wild how it works, but being right there in between Davis and Cornelius, very close to closest I-Meck school to the two, very similar demographics, really has become a game where when Lake Norman and Huff play each other, there's no level.
No, not at all. I think it's interesting how Huff and both the Mooresville teams have just ganged up against each other. And like you said, normally it's a Mooresville Lake Norman thing, but Huff's quickly put its name in there, and it's a fun rivalry. But I'll tell you what, I really think this is going to be the game of the conference because both these teams are fighting for a higher seeding in the playoffs, and this has major implications for the I-Meck seeding. So, big game. I think looking at it, I think Huff's got the edge, has some talent there. Jackson Campbell and Stilly, their quarterback. Solid defense. If Lake Norman can put a performance like they did against West Charlotte, though, anything can happen.
Always a chance why you play the game, as they say. But Lake Norman comes in 3-6, 2-3 in the conference. Huff 4-5, 3-2 in the conference. Right now, if Huff can put the W on the board, they solidify themselves into that third position in the conference at 4-2 because they end up going to Mallard Creek for the last game of the season. So, they're looking to make sure that they're above 500 in the conference. Everybody else is battling to make sure they can get close to it. So, it's going to be fun to see how it plays out. Mooresville, 7-2, 4-1 in the conference. In second, goes to North Meck this week, who's 1-8 overall, 0-5 in the conference, and really kind of struggling this year.
Yeah, it's been a rough year for North Meck so far, and you hate to see it. Predominantly, they're usually a good program down there. They got a good ball player down there, Terrence Clyburn, but he can't throw, catch, and run the ball every time. So, rough year for North Meck. Mooresville really shouldn't have a whole lot of trouble with this one if they go in mentally prepared and focused, which is what they need to do. They need to string together a couple big wins heading into the playoffs. But I don't see Mooresville having a whole lot of problems with this one.
They shouldn't have. We've talked about it a few times here on the show that Mooresville just hasn't played consistent week in, week out. They play a good one, play a big one, then they let down. They play another big one, then they let down. And Tuesday night, I got the opportunity to talk to Coach Capps as we had the Next Level seminar at Mooresville High School. Coach Capps, one of the speakers, I had the honor to MC that event, kind of oversee the night. And he said that first night of practice was a little bit flat. So he's looking for some of his seniors to step up, take a leadership role, and really put some things together and have a second solid performance going into the Lake Norman ball game where the kids will be jacked up, coming out of Lake Norman, going into the playoffs. They really got to start stringing some things together.
Yeah, they really do. And, this team, people from all around are saying this team's got potential to make a little bit of run in the playoffs. It all is going to be a mental aspect of it. If they go in ready to go, ready to win, they have a good shot to make a little run. Obviously, Porter Ridge is going to be close by. They're a top team in the state this year. So, Mooresville will eventually more likely run into them. But I tell you what, if they play to their abilities, the Huff game was a good example. The Vance game was another great example. They can make a little run, and I'm looking forward to it. The playoffs should be exciting.
Well, I'm looking forward to next week when Dale comes in, talking to him, because Mallard Creek right now, odds-on favorite to kind of run to the championship game. Then Mooresville, everybody's talking about them, but the problem is Mooresville has a tradition of kind of dropping the ball either first or second round in games they should have taken care of. So, this team with their track record, I'd love to say, yeah, they can make a run and really run that 4AA. Porter Ridge will be the ball game, but honestly, every week's going to be a ball game for Mooresville to get through the playoffs.
It will. In playoffs, it's what we call the real season. Obviously, that's where all bets are off. A 6-14 go in there, beat a 7, or 9-1 team, because momentum is huge, and that's why I think it's going to be key for Mooresville to get a couple big wins heading into this playoffs, and be able to make a run, because the teams aren't just going to lay over for them, obviously. And one problem they've had most of the second half of the season has been turnovers. Turnovers. And last week against Huff, they didn't have any. If they can keep that up, they can hang with the best.
Well, they really do, because that's the big thing. They've got to get consistent. So it should be a good ball game. Looking for a lot of great things out of the conference this week. Our My Connection game of the week this week is not an I-Meck game, so we'll set it up real quick. It's Cherryville taking on Lake Norman Charter. We'll be at Lake Norman Charter High School. The Knights are 5-4 on the season, but 1-4 in that 2A, 1A Southern Piedmont Conference. The Cherryville Ironmen come in 4-5, 3-2 in conference. Lake Norman Charter, second-year program. We actually got to see them third week of the season in the My Connection game of the week when they took on the Union County St. Jude. My mind's what Cleveland Lake on St. Jude's moniker, but picked up a win in that ball game. 3 in a row for them at that point. Really a good game. Fighting Christians, thank you very much. Had that brain fart, but the St. Jude Fighting Christians came in. Very good ball game. Got a couple good athletes on that Lake Norman Charter team, but this is only their second year as a program, and unlike Huff, they had to start from scratch. They had all kinds of new kids come to school, didn't benefit from Mallard Creek sending them a few, North Meck sending them a ton, Hopewell sending them a few.
Yep.
They really had to build from scratch. So Coach McKay has done a great job down there, and I look forward to seeing him again and seeing that ball game. Should be a lot of fun here on the My Connection Game of the Week. When we come back, Gary Trexler and I will be on location and setting up the game from Lake Norman Charter High School.